Vice President to the annual meeting of Electors, and I declare this meeting open on the 5th of February 2024 at Ballajura Community College. The City of Swan acknowledges the traditional custodians of this region, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past and present and their descendants. Just before we get going, got a little bit of housekeeping before we commence this meeting. Should you need to exit the building or access the toilet facilities, please make your way back out the door to my left over here, where you entered, and just follow the signs. I'm sure that someone will guide you to those amenities. This is also our exit in the event of an emergency tonight. You'll be asked to move out this door in an orderly fashion, and staff will direct you to the nearest exit, which is our marshalling point, which is out on the school oval. There is bottled water provided at the registration desk, and light refreshments will be available after the meeting in the foyer. Please don't hesitate to see our staff at the registration desk or security if you require any assistance or guidance, or if you need to depart quietly throughout the meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to present the 2022-23 annual report to the community and allow you, the electors, to have a say and ask questions on local matters. So under the Local Government Act 1995, procedures for this meeting are to be determined by the presiding member, and the procedure for public participation would have been provided to you at the registration desk out the front, either in a hard copy or via the QR code. So if you have a mobile phone, you'd like to use the QR code rather than paper, you're more than welcome. That's also available on the city's website. I'd just like to read out tonight some of the expectations for tonight's meeting as well. All attendees must register their attendance, including name and address, and on the attendance register provided by the City of Swan staff. Hopefully everyone has. And the attendance register is for the internal record purposes only and will not be published or distributed. But more importantly, can you please remain seated at all times during the meeting, unless invited by the presiding person to address the meeting at the lectern. We're hoping to bring a roving microphone up to those who are presenting motions tonight, so if you can just raise your hand at the time when it's your turn. C, not cause any disturbance or disrupt the meeting proceedings in any way. D, must be fair and respectful before, during and after the meeting, and comply with this procedure and the direction of the presiding person at all times. For those that don't adhere to this procedure, they might be requested by myself to leave the premises. So we're looking forward to an excellent meeting tonight, and a fairness for the whole community to be able to have their say and put their motions forward. In an endeavour to provide that fair and equal opportunity for all electors, those electors who have submitted motions in writing prior to the meeting, they will be invited to speak in the order in which they're received. So motions that received after the deadline will be provided with a written response advising on how you may best progress the matter. So tonight is not the be all end all if you are unfortunately not able to put up a motion tonight. And motions need to be moved and seconded before any discussion can occur, and only electors of the City of Swan are entitled to move motions or vote on motions. Each elected present is entitled to one vote, but does not have to vote. A speaker will have a maximum of 3 minutes to make their statement. The mover of a motion will be invited to speak first, and the seconder will be provided the opportunity to speak next. I'll then call for other verified electors who wish to speak for a maximum of 3 speakers for and 3 speakers against the motion. It is not necessary, however, to have any speakers for and against the motion for it to be put. And you don't have to have a maximum of 3 speakers for or against, because we've got a lot of motions through tonight. You do not have to fill the 3 for and against spots. The mover of the motion has the right of replying. He closes the debate. So again, the mover does not need to exercise their right of replying. The right of reply is limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. A verified elector may rise and move without discussion. So that the motion be now put, which on being duly seconded and carried by a simple majority will result in submission of the motion at once to the meeting. If I determine that sufficient and fair debate has occurred on a motion, then I will invite the mover to exercise the right of reply and put that motion to the vote. When you registered this evening, if you're an eligible voter, when you signed in, you have received a green and red voting card. You received a red and a green card. I'm sure you've all got them in your hands. I can see people in the audience with them. You cannot hold both up at the same time. So that would make it a pretty interesting night. So to vote, when I ask if you support the motion, please raise your hand showing the green card. And when I ask you against the motion, please raise your hand nice and each motion will be determined by a simple majority, and staff will go and count those votes. So please continue to hold that card high in the air until the count has been completed. For those electors who submitted questions prior to the meeting, where possible, a written response has been provided directly to you. I'll read these questions and answers out during section 4. Answers to any questions taken on notice tonight will be provided in the minutes of the meeting. If time permits, I ask if there are any further motions or questions from the floor. Electors are permitted to ask up to 3 questions at a time, and all questions from the floor should be provided in written format given to the city officers. I will endeavour to respond to any questions of a general nature. However, any questions requiring information that we are not able to provide tonight or which requires a detailed response will be taken on notice, and responses to all questions will be provided in the minutes of the meeting. As there are quite a few motions tonight, it will be a long meeting. My apologies if we don't get to those that might have come and not registered in time. We can still look at those motions for you outside of this meeting, so all is not lost. So when speaking at the meeting, you must use the microphone provided, please. State your name and suburb for recording in minutes. Address the meeting through the presiding member. Limit the statement to the fact, not opinion or suppositions, and not reflect adversely on council members or city employees. Let's keep it nice and friendly tonight, and let's all have a really good experience. And please refrain from making any repetitive comments on the matters that have already been discussed, so that we can ensure that the meeting can progress effectively. When you're invited to speak, please raise your hand and the city officer will bring you that microphone. The meeting will conclude at the latest at 9 p.m. tonight, and that is due to the fact that we have to pack up this room and the building at the time that's allotted here, so we must finish up by 9 o'clock, please. Tonight we have nil apologies that have been received from the meeting for councillors. I apologise. Councillor Dawn is an apology for this evening. So receiving the annual report, consistent with Section 5.27 of the Local Government Act 1995. Yes.
Okay, I just want to request that the dais there, which is I expect people are going to be speaking from, is turned around so that they're speaking to the audience as well as councillors, because a lot of the issues that have been raised tonight, not everybody in the audience will know about, so it's really good to have that body language and eye contact with everybody in the room. So can we have that moved around and so that the person who's speaking is going to be speaking to everyone and not having their back to anyone? Thanks for that.
Thanks very much for that. We probably would have moved it since it was obscuring the view of councillors. So, back to regulations 1996, the matters to be discussed at the general electors meeting are firstly the contents of the annual report for the previous financial year, and then any general business up to that. The 2022-23 annual report was adopted by council at its December 13, 2023 meeting. And I invite the city CEO, Stephen Kane, to speak to the annual report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, council members, particularly the members of the audience who have come out here tonight to join us, and to the staff of the City of Swan. It's my great pleasure tonight to not only welcome you to this particular location, but also to introduce to you, for those who read the city's annual report. The annual report details a raft of information on the city, the projects we undertake, the successes we've had. Most importantly, it focuses around the city's strategic community plan. And we're very much guided by our plan, everything we do. The 5 core themes that you will see, the natural environment, economic, social, built environment and governance, are at the heart of every single council decision. We are one of the fastest growing local governments in the metropolitan area. More importantly, we're 20% of the entire metropolitan area of a significant land mass of over 1,022 square kilometres. When you're big, it's also challenging to try and keep up with all of that growth. This evening, when we receive the annual report, we'll share with you some of the highlights of the way we've managed that growth. Now, I'm not going to speak to this document. I'm going to let a video tell you the story of what the city has done. I think when you've looked at that video, you'll be better informed. More importantly, you may have some specific questions on the annual report. So I thank the staff, and before we do, if any of the council members want to go to the side so they can see the video more carefully or clearly, you're more than welcome.
Hi everyone and welcome to the annual Electors meeting. I'm Tanya Richardson, the first popularly elected Mayor of the City of Swan. The annual Electors meeting is one of the most important events of the year. It's an opportunity for all of us to talk about what we accomplished together last financial year and to hear your requests and suggestions for the future. Our city had an incredibly successful year in 2022-23 and we're proud of the major projects we've completed, projects that will have long-lasting benefits for our community. From new facilities and roads to a new approach to consultation and an overhaul of our public websites, it's been a year of change for the better. And this year is shaping up to be another big one for our city. We've prepared a video for this meeting to highlight our key achievements in 2022-23 and some of our projects and goals for this current financial year. And we're excited to share it with you and we hope you find it informative. Have a wonderful evening and I look forward to seeing you out and about in our community.
The City of Swan has one of Western Australia's fastest growing populations spread across more than 20% of the Perth metropolitan area. It's an exciting place to live and we strive to give you value for rates by delivering high quality services and projects. The city is guided in everything we do by our strategic community plan, which is broken into 5 key result areas: natural environment, economic, social, built environment and governance. We have a big year ahead of us, but first, let's take a look at some of the highlights from the 2022-23 financial year. Natural environment. From the Swan River to the Swan Valley and far beyond, our natural environment is one of our biggest assets. Protecting that natural environment and promoting sustainability are high priorities. In our ongoing effort to expand our urban canopy, we planted 1,821 street trees in 2022-23. and another 364 trees at our parks. Our free tree giveaway was a huge success as we expanded the giveaway to include urban properties, distributing 21,000 seedlings to residents across the city. We took part in the garage sale trail for the first time, with 344 garage sales diverting 61.9 tonnes of material from landfill. We made our Avon Descent Festival a single-use plastic-free event and held several clothes swaps across the city. Waste is a core service of a local government and a key opportunity to improve sustainability. There was a significant increase in the number of curbside general waste bins across the city, and we emptied them nearly 3 million times in total. Despite the increase, we received less general waste overall, showing our community is serious about sustainability. Our recycling centres were busy, with more than 56,500 vehicle visits to our Bullsbrook Centre, 27,700 to our Malaga Centre, and recovery rates up at both. All green waste collected, more than 5,500 tonnes, was processed into mulch, which was then used across the city or given away to residents. We processed 5.7 million containers through our Containers for Change program, an increase of 630,000. These are positive trends, and there's a lot of work that goes into educating the community and promoting sustainability. Our Thinking Green program delivered 83 free workshops, drawing hundreds of community members and covering a variety of sustainability topics. Economic. Just like our population, our city's economy is diverse and growing. In the year ending June 2022, our gross regional product was $11.37 billion, up 6% on the previous year. Swan is home to more than 13,000 GST registered businesses, employing almost 80,000 people. With MetroNet set to make our city more connected, that number is set to soar. We also have tourist destinations that are the envy of other Perth councils, from historic Guildford to our incredible Swan Valley. Our Business and Tourism Services team is dedicated to supporting our businesses and promoting our destinations. The Swan Valley returned to Singapore last year for the first time since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Producers from WA's oldest wine region formed new connections with big players from a key overseas market. Another key economic focus for the city is reducing our reliance on rates income by generating revenue through selling surplus land, facilitating development and acquiring commercial assets. In 2022-23, more than $2.5 million was generated for the city in rental revenue, with a building occupancy rate of 82%, and some $22 million worth of land sales were negotiated and/or settled. Social. People are at the centre of everything we do. Our community is incredibly diverse and we celebrate that diversity. From the many migrant communities that make Swan such a vibrant place to the Whadjuk Noongar people who have lived here for tens of thousands of years. The impact of our inaugural Reconciliation Action Plan can be seen around the city, with an increase in the visibility of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures in our community. In 2022-23, we invested in the social wellbeing of our community with a fantastic calendar of events. Our Avon Descent Festival drew 7,500 people to Lilac Hill Park, the largest ever attendance for the event. The Women's Big Bash League returned to Lilac Hill for a weekend of world-class cricket, attracting over 9,000 people. We held monthly citizenship ceremonies, welcoming 940 new citizens to our community and celebrating Australian culture. Entwined in the Swan Valley and Harvest Festival showcased our incredible Swan Valley and all it has to offer. The Hyper Series continued to be one of WA's most exciting youth arts programs, championing local talent and culminating in the state's biggest alcohol-free, all-ages music festival. Eltone Comes Alive and NAIDOC Week gave our community a chance to connect, relax and express themselves. Events such as the Volunteer Bushfire Brigade Recognition Dinner and our Leadership Symposium allowed us to celebrate those in our community who lead by example. We also supported a range of events through our Community Grants program to foster connection and inclusion. Our Swan Volunteer Resource Centre connected 1,527 volunteers with community groups, while our Community Care Services team supported 945 people who were aged or living with disability. Built environment. Our growing city has one of the biggest capital works budgets of any local government in the state, and we put that budget to work in 2022-23, completing a range of projects. We opened the doors to the Ellenbrook Youth Centre. This $7.1 million facility is a fantastic space where young people can socialise, build their skills and participate in a range of fulfilling activities. We also opened the Brockman Community Centre in Beachborough, which provides a modern and functional home for local not-for-profit organisation Brockman Community House. We completed a $71 million extension to Stock Road, connecting Tonkin Highway and Great Northern Highway in a major upgrade that will boost road safety, reduce congestion and unlock economic potential. We finished upgrades to Nangara Road in Henley Brook, worth almost $12 million. A key stretch of Nangara Road was duplicated and 2 intersections were upgraded. Complementing these upgrades was the opening of a shared path along Nangara Road late last year to boost safety and connectivity in Ellenbrook and Averley. We also celebrated the opening of a new dual-use path on the 2J Road in Middle Swan, which links Stratton, Midvale and Midland. And we honoured our history of wartime sacrifice with a new 10th Light Horse Regiment memorial statue in Guildford, the place where the regiment was raised in 1914. Governance. Good governance is about accountability, transparency, leadership and communication. With such a wide range of projects and services on our books, we were pleased last year to be ranked as one of WA's top local governments for financial reporting. We were one of only 2 major metropolitan councils to receive best practice status for financial reporting from the Auditor General. A key theme for the city for 2022-23 was improving the way we communicate with our residents. One way we did this was by launching Swan Engage, giving our community a new way to engage with us and get involved in local decision making. In the first 6 months of Swan Engage, we ran 212 consultations and had 30,000 visits. We also launched our new online services portal to give ratepayers a convenient way to manage their accounts. The portal already has more than 7,500 users. We created 2 brand new websites to replace our main City of Swan website and our Swan Valley website. And we added a live chat feature to our main city website to expand our 24/7 customer service model. It's all part of our digital transformation as we seek to improve communication with our residents and become more environmentally friendly. So, what's next? Looking forward, the future is very bright. Our 2023-24 budget responds to priorities identified by you, such as new mobile CCTV units, lighting upgrades for safer parks, and shade sails at playgrounds. We have plenty of major projects on our agenda, and as always, we have worked hard to attract funding from the state and federal governments. Midland Public Library reopened earlier this year after the completion of careful repair works and upgrades totalling $2.2 million. Swan Active Midland is getting closer to its grand reopening after a major $30 million refurbishment that will give the Midland community a first-rate centre. Another example of our investment in sport and recreation is the $2.3 million renewal of the Dulcie Lidlow Netball Centre in Midvale, which will be completed in the coming months. The highly anticipated Swan Active Ellenbrook is in the planning and design phase, with construction expected to start next financial year. Swan Active Ellenbrook will be a regional level facility with outdoor and indoor pools, water slides, indoor sports courts, and much more. The Ellenbrook community has even more to look forward to, with planning progressing for a hub for local community groups. A new Bells Rapids lookout, scheduled for construction next financial year, will give visitors a stunning vantage point across the rapids and the Avon Valley. Families will benefit from a $6.4 million All Abilities play space, coming soon to Balladura, with a pump track also on the way at Kingfisher Oval. Meanwhile, in Dayton, construction is in full flight on stage 2 of the $28 million Dayton District Open Space project. Later this year, we will start the staged rollout of the Food Organics and Garden Organics 3-bin system, better known as FOGO, to divert more waste from landfill. And once the waste-to-energy plant in East Rockingham is completed later this year, we will be turning our waste into energy. The list goes on, but as you can see, it's an exciting time for our city. Thank you to everyone who is getting involved, having a say and helping make the City of Swan such a special place.
Well, I hope you found that video very informative and had a good look at all the projects that the City of Swan are currently undertaking. As you can see, 2023 and 2022-23 was a really busy year, but it was full of achievements that our community can be proud of. We have many more exciting projects on the agenda this financial year and some big milestones on the horizon. Are there any questions on the content of the annual report that anyone's not sure certain that they'd like to ask now before we commence the motion? Yes, sorry.
I'll ask the same question that I've asked last year. There is quite a gap in operational income and operational outgoings. What is the city doing with those several millions that are almost $30 million? Last year you said it's healthy for a city to have this gap.
Thank you very much for the question. I might refer that to the CEO.
Thank you. It's an after question. I think as I sat down with you last year, when you run the household budget, in order to save for the future, you have to generate more income than you spend. So just like running your household budget, we have the mortgage to pay, which is the debt obligations of the city. But what we raised rates, unless you generate some surplus, you're unable to build the capital necessary to generate and pay for new facilities. The depreciation charge, the expense we have there, some $50 million, doesn't equate to anywhere near the capital funds that we spend. So in addition to what we set aside for depreciation, what we bring in from state and federal and other grants, you need to generate some surplus in order to be able to provide the facilities for the future.
Are there any other questions from the audience? If there are no further questions, then we will move on. So, motions carried out at the last annual meetings of electors has been provided with an update which is available on the city's website or via that QR code that's been provided. So some hard copies are available at the registration desk, and I think I can see quite a few we've got them in front of you. If you haven't, pop your hand up and we'll see if staff can get a copy to you then. So, what we've been waiting for tonight. The following motions were received in writing prior to the meeting. A mover and a seconder for each motion is required. So if you've nominated a seconder, I'll ask them to speak next after you. When you're invited to speak, please state your full name and suburb. So the first elector we have is Greg Bruce from Ellenbrook. He is motion number 1. Greg, if you're here, could you pop your hand in the air and staff will bring the microphone to you? So that's Greg Bruce from Ellenbrook. And it looks like Greg might not be here this evening. So then we'll move on to motion number 2, which is Francesca Irwin from Woodbridge.
Sorry about that delay. We don't need a seconder for these motions. We didn't know whether we had to have a seconder or not when we were preparing. So my first motion in this motion number 2 is I propose that the subsequent City of Swan annual electors meetings are to be held between March and December, i.e. not the first week of February. The reason for this is because many other councils hold their AEMs at different times of the year, and indeed so has the City of Swan in years gone by. Holding it so close.
We do need a seconder for that.
Oh, do we need a
Have you
seconder?
got someone seconded there? Raise your hand. Marilyn, Stefan? Thank you.
Okay, beg your pardon. So it's pretty obvious. The month of January is a difficult time for electors to prepare and to attend so soon after the seasonal breaks in January. I suggest that a decision to move later into the year is a sign that the City of Swan are interested in and encourage electors having time to give considered input. I could say loads more, but I don't need to.
Just before you consider this motion, so understand the timing. It's a statutory obligation for the city to run its electors meeting within 56 days of the consideration and receipt of the annual report. The annual reports for all local governments are provided to them through the Office of the Auditor General. So ours was received last year in November. It is then presented to Council. So we are obliged within 56 days of that to conduct the meeting. We had either tonight or tomorrow night as the only 2 days at the end of that sequence to conduct it. So the only way you could consider a motion like this is if the Auditor General delays the presentation of the annual report to the city, which is something we're beholden to on their schedule. So by all means, you can move a motion, but the reality will be we're dictated by the statute to hold the meeting within 56 days of the receipt of the annual report presented to Council through the Auditor General.
When did you release it? November? So
the audit is received in November. It's presented to Council at the December Council meeting. You'll note that some local governments haven't yet completed their audits, so the Auditor General processes those who have the competence and capability, as does the City of Swan. So we'd like to present the annual report for the year you've just seen as quickly as we possible to Council. the earliest time we can do that is December. So we're obliged then to consider the December report 56 days of receipt of that. So therefore it is held in February. That's the reason why you're sitting here.
Yeah, sure, there's two separate things, and one is the presentation of the annual report. And the reason I'm raising it is for the electors to have time to, these are two separate things that could be held separately.
So unfortunately, the Act says that the primary function of the annual electors meeting is to receive the annual report. So it has to be done on the same night, and that's why we present the annual report, which you've just done, and then it's open to receive motions.
So has that changed over the years? I mean, I know Swan did have it later in the year, I know other councils had it later in the year.
So some local governments have yet to process their statement of accounts. But the longer you're withholding it, I'm not trying to be today tonight, just to provide some background to you. The longer you're seeking to delay it, is the later you're actually receiving the annual report from the year you've already completed. So tonight we were showcasing you activities in last year's annual report. That finished at 30th of June last year. And here we are in 2024, talking about activities that took place in 22 and 23. I'm just saying, if you move the motion, the reality is simply we have to hold the meeting within 56 days of the receipt of the audited general statement and present it in the form of an annual report, and therefore that's why it's held in February.
So those days don't give us space to get into February, into mid-Feb, anything like that?
56 days, the cut-off is either today or tomorrow.
Okay. Now I'm going to put that motion to the vote. Have you got any speakers for offence?
There's one.
Would you like to take the microphones up? You have 2 minutes.
It's a quick one. I think the intent is to allow the electors have more time, so maybe we can change the motion to say that the annual report will be submitted in whenever it's required, and then later on in the year there'll be a different meeting in order to allow the electors to raise a second time during the year, because you're such a wonderful city. Let's stop.
Just I reiterate again, the Act says the function of the annual electors meeting is to receive the annual report, so the matters have to be conducted on the same night.
Okay. Those in favour of the motion, raise your hand with thank you for the decision.
Gentlemen, there'll be 3 staff at the front counting each of the areas, just so we've got an accurate account of the numbers. And if I could just mind you to hold either a green or a red card, because the mayor will call out for, that's green, and against, it's red.
So those in favour, please raise the green card. So that was a 12-4, and those against, please raise the red card. So the motion is lost, and it was 12 votes to 30. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next motion, which is also from Francesca Ewing from Woodbridge. Motion 3.
I move that the CEO report to council on the feasibility of Midland Railway Workshop City Square as an event space and advocate for Midland Railway Heritage Museum at the workshops.
Do
Now,
you have a second? Patrick Ewing?
so we do know that the WA are responsible for and utilise and manage the workshops, okay, I'm not saying people are responsible for doing that now, but there's no reason why the City of Swan should not be proactive about this fantastic space that has such a significant and rich connection to WA social and economic history. I don't need to trot through that history, it's enormous, and to site with nothing on it is It begs belief. So what can the City of Swan be proactive about? And can the CEO report on that?
Do you have a speaker for? Shall I speak? Just bring the microphone down.
I was on the reference group, the committee sitting under Karen Kinsella, which looked at the issue of the Railway Heritage Museum, and the factor that was preventing the opportunity going ahead was the lack of funding, and the funding sought at the time, and I'm going back some 20 years, the funding sought at that time was of the order of $20 million. And it was a great lost opportunity for the rail history of Western Australia and indeed Australia. Would have been a magnificent rail heritage centre, and I think it's been lost as a concept for too long. And I know that the Bassendean Rail Heritage Museum needs proper facilities. A lot of their rolling stock, heritage rolling stock, is stored out in the weather, and surely the opportunity can be pursued, and rather than just being empty space, a vital, exciting tourist attraction.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Are there any speakers against the motion?
Could I just ask a quick
Question?
are we talking about the Midland Railway security? Because there's two separate identities here with the WA workshops and then also the Midland Railway workshops. So there's two separate areas that we should be looking at, not just the Midland Railway.
Mr. Irwin, if you can just confirm which one.
To be
So that's the thousand that.
Yeah,
Okay,
that
thank
answers.
you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Question? And can you just add your name and suburb, please? Jeff.
Williams.
Thanks, Jeff.
There used to be a Midland Railway Heritage Museum there. Some years ago, probably prior to sort of running it. Disappeared. It's there, just where the gates were.
There can't be, at the moment, in my knowledge, there is no museum that is currently being operated.
Well, that's what I never knew what happened to the old one. There's funny back in the days of Jeff Gallagher and Alan Carpenter. It's disappeared.
I'm not aware of that, but I'm sure that we can see staff after. They might be able to give you some of the previous information regarding it when it was running. Any speakers, a question? Okay, maybe you could have a discussion after, if that's okay. So are there any speakers against the motion? No speakers against the motion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, raise your green card. Those against the motion, if you could raise your vote card. That's very unanimous. Thank you very much, Francesca.
Thank you.
And motion carried 59. It's 59 nil. To motion 4, and this is also from Francesca Irwin from Woodbridge.
Yep. Thank you. So motion 4, that the City of Swan advertise and then conduct an open public information session about the current status of the Midland Code, including what land has been sold or is subject to a heads of agreement, subdivision plans completed, works to be completed and timeframes, and which of the 4 scenarios in the business plan will likely be adopted?
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Yes.
Mr. Patrick Garrett? Would you like to speak?
So here's my reason. Yes. So the public haven't been updated about them all, but there's considerable public interest and expectation in the outcome of the project. There's been contradictory motions passed by the council on the law, which leaves the public not really knowing what is and what isn't happening. The project involves the sale of $500 million worth of public land, and at this stage we understand has already cost over 50 million, and is to cost further over 100 million on roads, services, infrastructure, etc. So we're talking big dollars from the ratepayers, and in summary, we wish to understand how our assets are being disposed of, why and at what cost to the ratepayers. I was quite interested with the presentation this afternoon today. I didn't see anything mentioned about Midland or the law at all. So that's it. In turn, we need to know what's going on.
Thank you. Seconder? Would you like to speak to the motion?
I think it's useful for the community to have information.
Thank you. Is there anyone against the motion? Would you like to speak? Please state your name and suburb.
Hi, I'm James Pollard from Jane Brook. Yeah, sure. I mean, information is always good to have. And over the years that I've been involved with monitoring what's going on in the mall, there has been conflicting information, conflicting motions put. And I wouldn't say that that's any fault of the city of Swan. I object because I think, given the iteration that the mall or Midland redevelopment master plan has had to endure over the years because of what I consider fairly frivolous motions, fairly much aimed at just delaying the project for whatever reason I can't quite imagine. I think this motion is just another delaying tactic that
Pollard, if we could just keep our comments respectful, please, and keep it to the point of the motion, please.
I think it is.
I think we need to bring it back to the point of the motion, which is
I think I
zero
deviated from it.
motion.
I think I deviated. I'm just about to finish. You're delaying.
Make it briefly.
Certainly. So I don't think another delay is warranted. I think we should leave the project alone and let it evolve as it needs to evolve before you mess with it again.
Thank you.
Then I
And now the
request that the
CEO would like to make a comment on that.
If I could, just for the members of the public, there's a council resolution that the city present an annual report on the Midland Oval, which we did last year. All of those documents are in the public domain. They include the details on the capital expenditure on the project, the value of land sales, the overall scheme of the project. That report is due to be presented back and be published again in a couple of months' time. So whilst the motion is there, we are doing all the things that I've mentioned. I'll just point out, it's not about 4 scenarios in the business plan. There is a single business plan that's been adopted by council. So that's what we report back on. But that information is contained on the city's website now.
Okay, is there anyone else for the motion who would like to speak? There was a hand up first before, so I'll take that question next. Can you state your name and suburb, please?
Woodbridge. I might speak for, because I think that this is a process of stepping forward. And we all know that many people do not go to look at screens of information on the website and a range of reports. I think this is a really good community engagement. This is about stepping forward. This is the status. No one's going back. But I think it would do the City of Swan a lot of goodwill, and it would also, is the role of the council to actually inform its electorate. So I don't see this as saying anything that is about undoing. I think it's really saying this is a public information session and providing an opportunity for the community to come together around something really, really important and vital, and that has strong interest. So I think it'd be really, really good, and I think let's step forward for everybody on that council as councillors. Let's all step forward. Give those people who live in your city the opportunity to actually come together, hear about this, and take it in a positive light. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deering. And I have a question down the front here. Could you state your name and your subject, please?
CEO, what you mentioned. Leaving details about the report of what the city is doing to promote and encourage investment in the project, and indeed what this council is doing to promote and encourage investment in this project.
Look, I'll just pick it up there, just the question slightly off track of the motion, but the short answer is yes, because part of the resolution of council requires an investment and traction report to be produced and marketed. Staff are working on that at this stage.
Are there any further, is there anyone against the motion? Question, and your name and subject?
The CEO mentioned that the information about this motion is on the website. Does the council ever consider that not every elector has access to a computer? What information is ever put out in a hard copy form for everybody?
Indeed, if I could just address that for you, the information is on the website, and we published an extract in the Echo as part of this. We also ensured that copies of the council minutes, as we do, are each in the library. So if you don't have access, if you're a Ballajura resident, I think you mentioned that tonight as we came in, there'll be a copy of that contained in your local library.
May I also point out there is no community newspaper in Ballajura?
There is the council sponsored, but yes, there is no particular community newspaper in Ballajura. The easiest way to access that information would be to go along to your local library, where the librarian and the library assistants there are more than capable of helping you to access information. That would be your most regular point of contact to be able to get that information quickly, particularly after every council. It's probably the easiest way to get the most accurate information the day after. So thank you for the question. Is there anyone else against the motion who would like to speak or for the motion? If not, we'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of the motion? Sorry. If you could raise your green card, please. Those against, if you could raise the red card. It's passed 45 to 17. The next motion number 5 is this Smarter Turn from Swanview. Thank you, Smarter, you have 3 minutes.
From Swanview. The motion is to remove the East Link project from the city's priority list.
Do you have a seconder? Mr. Pato?
Can I give a bit of background in case someone here is not familiar with the project? So the East Link project is a project that started in the 80s. It was called the Orange Route. It was designed to just connect Tweedale Road to the Great Eastern. Over the years, it got replanned, reevaluated. It was done full design in the 90s. Recently, they've done a full design. Now it's including from Tonkin Highway all the way to Northern. It's designed to be a truck route, therefore it needs to be very low gradients. If you can imagine, the way up the hill around Brook will be a massive ramp. And that's how they justify all the new other paths that they're doing along the Reed Highway. At the moment, we have 2 budgeted for, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Alton and Rompia, that are already budgeted for to do this. There are a lot of things wrong with it. It's designed for a huge community that's not there. It's designed for traffic that's not there. We're talking about taking roads that have 10,000, 20,000 vehicles per day, or even 5,000 or 6,000, and making it okay for 45 and 50,000 vehicles per day. So this is not in any scale. Every few years, and we're talking about 20 years or so, it gets a few more millions thrown at it. So 20 were only done in the last couple of years, and we know in the 90s there were a few other millions thrown to it. It's a huge money sink, and it also causes the fact that the roads don't get upgraded, because it's like, oh yeah, one day we'll do that. So we're asking for the city to take it off its priority list, because there's no need, the state is aware of it, the state is not pushing for it, and it's a waste, and it's not going to be done anytime soon, so why waste the city's funds?
Thank you very much for that motion. And your seconder? Would you like to speak to the motion? Mr. Evans was seconded. Just a moment, just to start with the microphone, thank you. Sure, we haven't got any microphone there. Just see if we can borrow this one here. We'll just start again there, Pat. Thank you.
I believe the city is already taking the easing off its priority list. Is that correct?
If I could, then we'll consider it advocacy priorities, but where projects are being driven by state and federal government, independent of the city, we haven't sought to put that as our priority, because those projects are being delivered by the decision makers.
I think the great point is that it's a huge expenditure with a huge destruction of bushland, and it really doesn't fulfill anything useful except facilitates about 7 trucks between Northern and Road Highway. So I think it's a big waste of money and destructive to the environment. I mean, I'm aware of the route it's planned for going up Red Hill. Will take out the natural wetlands and the ochre pits. That's just one small part of it. And incidentally, when I spoke to Ken Wyatt about that, he was deeply assured that that would not happen. But in fact, if you look at the plans, you see that is the case. And that's just going up Red Hill. So it's a huge expenditure and a huge destruction of bushland. And I don't think, in the view that the reality is the federal government is cutting back on these major infrastructure spends. I don't think it's very likely to happen, fortunately. So I totally support this motion.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? We'll get there in a second. Is there anyone who would like to speak against the motion? No. Does anyone like to speak for the motion? You'd just like to stand up and state your name and so on. Thank you.
I'd like to speak for the motion. Believable be. I'm sure main roads, as the city of Swan don't know by now, I don't know what's going on. Main roads are not going ahead with the road. Both state and federal reps have come out and said there's no funding. As Senator said, it's been in the planning for 4 years. It will impact on something like 800 hectares of land between the Tonkin Highway and Northern. The forest clearing, the canopy removal, and the destruction, as Patrick has just said, would far outweigh anything that Northlink did. So I'll rename it as its development by stealth. I'm sure there's people in the city of Swan that see it as fantastic, because it just means that the areas up the hill will then be able to get all of this infrastructure, etc., for development. So I agree with the motion.
Thank you very much. Oops, thank you. Now I'll just call again. Is there anyone for the motion who'd like to speak? Anyone against the motion who'd like to speak? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, raise your green card. So if you can raise your red card, please. So the motion is carried 25-11. And we have motion number 6, Mr. Patrick Irwin for Woodbridge. Thanks, Mr. Irwin.
Thank you.
Councillor.
I move that the Midland Town Centre, motion 6. I move that all land in the Morn precinct owned by the City of Swan, not sold or subject to heads of agreement for sale to date, is set aside as green public open space.
Do you have a seconder? Please state your name and survey, please. Thanks, Mr. Irwin. You have 3 minutes.
The reason for this motion is because the town of Midland is desperately short of green public open space. At one time, when we had Midland Oval and all the ancillary bowling clubs, tennis courts, croquet clubs and so forth, croquet courts, there was something, and the parking area and the pavilion, there was something like 5.5 hectares of land. What we're down to now with the reduction of the green open space, public green open space in the Norm proposal, we're down to about 0.6% of green public open space in the town of Midland. This is way short of the Liverpool City's draft figure of 10%, which I believe has been subsequently reduced to 8%, but there's still a huge difference between 8% and 0.6%. And it's very important in a thriving community that you have amenable public open green space in proximity to areas of development. And the idea that we have population growth must be supported with adequate green public open space.
Thank you very much. And second, sorry, would you like a microphone? Do you wish to speak? No. Is there anyone against the motion? To speak? Just state your name and suburb.
James Pollard, Jane Brook, certain sense of deja vu here. I think we've heard these arguments before. And let's face it, the council has voted 3 times for the more to go ahead. The most recent, was it 2023? I think I was there. These arguments came up. I know there's a history of concessions on green space since the inception of the mall. We now have Weed Park, which is it's a wonderful space, well used. I think it's a perfect size. And I don't hear, other than a certain group complaining about the size of that. I just personally think it's a simple motion. I think it's a time waster. And I think I would just call you to stop making these motions, please. The more has been voted to go ahead. I think it was the option one. There's a whole history of it. You're just breaking things up from the past. I don't know for what reason, possibly just to delay things. So on those grounds, I object to the motion. Thank you.
Mr. Collard, is there anyone in favour of the motion who'd like to speak? Thank you. Please state your name and suburb again.
Yes, Carol, everyone's entitled to their own view, and Perth has the smallest percentage of urban forest and canopy cover in the country, and that's a fact. And I've just spoken about Eastlink, and we're on to the public open space. We have a rapidly diminishing forest cover and canopy cover. Those things are very important, and I'll put a couple of motions later that can hopefully expand on that statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Is there anyone against the motion who'd like to speak? For the motion? Who'd like to speak? Your name and suburb, thank you.
Endearing from Woodbridge, and I think in the annual report you're talking about our population growing by 78%. So we have an obligation here to ensure that going forward, that the next gen have the opportunity to live in a livable place. For the last 3 weeks, on a range of radios, talkback programs, they have talked about Perth having the lowest tree canopy in Australia. So we have gone from being one of the greenest places to being one of the lowest. So our city does not have green canopy. We are living in one of the largest councils, and I think this is saying that there needs to be green public open space and saving these areas. So I can't see that this is a negative. I think that this, if you look at all major cities, Fremantle, Leadville, Stirling, Wanneroo, can keep going, they all have a major sort of parkland in the centre of their city. So where people come together. So I think that this would add to, the city and the feel of Midland, given that we have huge traffic problems. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll call for the last speaker against. Is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your green card. Those against, if you could raise your red card, please. So the motion is carried, and that was 46-16. Thank you. Motion number 7 is Mr. Patrick Irwin from Woodbridge. Would you like to move your motion?
Thank you. Motion 7. I move that the Midland Town Centre, comprising the State Heritage listed Crown Triangle, which includes the Town Hall, the Old Post Office, Carnegie Gardens, the Connolly Building, and the Ascension Church, be extended down Old Great Northern Highway as far as the Avenue, along Great Eastern Highway to MJAC, and along Helena Street to the railway, to be assessed as a heritage or conservation place or precinct for inclusion on the city's heritage list.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Thank you. Phil Carroll from Get Together. Second motion. Thank you, Mr. Irwin. You've got 3 minutes.
The reason for this motion is that this is the old area of Midland, which still retains the bulk of its construction from the early 20th century. Many of the places that I refer to, particularly the commercial ones, have lost their verandas, but these could be restored and would bring the heritage character back to life for that area and really reveal the asset that the old heart of Midland is, again in terms of heritage and tourism. And it used to be, I believe, the busiest shopping street in Perth in WA was Helena Street itself when the workers came out of the workshops. All the shops there were abundantly used. And so I think this sort of recognition and protection, and with some encouragement to help the property owners restore their places, would be able to bring Midland into a kind of rebirth, because I think it really it needs it. But of course, it's already doing okay. It's hanging in there. But to restore it would bring it back to its former glory.
Thank you. Any seconder? Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I agree with Patrick's motion, and he hasn't mentioned Tui Gardens. I have a look on some of the Facebook pages, and I do go into some of the old history books, and Tui Gardens and all the architecture of the whole area that he's mentioned, it's all fantastic. A lot of it is the very old buildings. I'm surprised fires haven't found their way into some of those buildings. But Tui Gardens, when you look at the Facebook posts of the way it was 40, 50, 60 years ago, it was a green area, very pleasant. There was heritage roses all planted, and the place was beautiful. And I drive past there these days and I think, how can we let somewhere like that turn into the state that it is? I've been to these meetings prior and I've seen people talk about it, and I'm surprised it's not being brought up. But yeah, I can fully endorse Patrick's motion.
Is anyone against the motion who would like to speak to the motion? Question? State your name and suburb, please.
Shane Pollock, Allenbrook. Just a question on if this proposal goes in the motion. How is this funding you're talking about going to be funded? Like, you'll be expecting the business owners to pay for it, the owners of the property, or the council in straight both?
It's a question that's beyond the scope of the motion. I'm just hoping that encouragement you can obtain funding to support conservation projects. You can get 50% funding support on conservation projects through HECWA. But there are other possible incentives which could be the city could consider, rate reductions for people who are doing restoration. There are these sorts of issues. There are many of these are established methods of supporting heritage. It's beyond my scope to really get into.
Thank you. And we had, let's just speak against the motion. You state your name and topic.
Rex McRae, 15 Old Great Northern Highway, Midland. Patrick, I appreciate you bringing it to the public, the awareness that there's a huge problem in Midland Town Centre. The buildings are worthless. I've got premises that have been vacant for 12 years. Something has to be done to the Midland Town Centre to save it, but I don't think tying it up in further red tape is going to do us any favours.
Thank you. Though someone would like to speak for the motion, just say your name and topic.
Lee Symington, Woodbridge. Heritage is gold, and heritage is not something you can get back. Midland has this little gold asset in there that I never knew about before I came. It's as good as Fremantle, it's as good as many of the other, but much better than any other suburbs, and it's just not celebrated in Midland. Why not celebrate the heritage, make it a rich cultural place with all these different sorts of assets, including heritage? And I just think to ignore your heritage is to really do a great disjustice to Midland.
Thank you. Now, speaker against the motion, would you like to state your name and topic?
Lucky last. James Pollard, James Brook. Patrick, I don't disagree with the entire motion. And, I think you're right on the mark with the Midland Town Centre. So it's already state heritage listed, that triangle. Yeah, it's really important, the post office. I would like to just make some comments about the idea of Toohey Gardens being some sort of a dream strip of roses and I don't know what else. It's not my memory, certainly as a child. And, certainly my point is I think parts of Midland have moved on and they need some reinvigoration, which is why I'm a great advocate for more myself. So all I wanted to really say why I object to this motion is now. I think the second half of it, I think it's a little bit broad and I'd need some further graphic representation and a lot more detail before I could approve something like that. And on that basis, because there may be buildings, there may be areas in between that just aren't redeemable and could do with some modern renovation. And so I think there could be a danger that it's too broad an area, but I'd like to see more detail of your proposal on that before I would vote for it. So on that basis, at this stage, I'm against it.
Thank you, Mr. Pollard. I'm looking for a third speaker for the motion. We're at 3, so thank you very much. Excellent. Last call is for anyone against the motion. This is the third speaker against the motion. Does anyone like to speak against the motion? If not, we'll pop that to the vote. So all those in favour. I already called it, but thank you very much. So we'll put that to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your green card. And those against, if you could please raise your red card. And 17 against. So the motion was carried 46 to 17. Thank you very much, Mr. Stewart. And now we move to motion number 8. We have Ms. Lynn Deering from Woodbridge, Great Place Association. Maxine, if you could move your motion.
So I'm speaking on behalf of the Woodbridge Ratepayers Association. So would you like, do I need to state my motion?
Just state the motion.
Firstly, I just want to thank the council and the staff for the effort and the improvements that have gone in relation to the annual general meeting. Okay, for it's getting better and better, and this motion is about 20 minutes. Regarding the motions endorsed at the annual electors meeting, the CEO reported to council about the following. Within 6 months of the AEM, how electors' motions are to be completed, including how the AEM motions will come to council, the timeline for completion. Once a motion is decided by council, that the outcome should appear on the City of Swan website and the person who put the motion. A report with details about the status and the outcome of the AEM motions on the City of Swan website. At least 1 month before the next annual electors meeting and at the next annual electors meeting. We provided. Would you like to give some background to?
You can go in. Do you want a seconder? If you could say your name and suburb. Thank you, Mr. Ashby. And now you have 3 minutes to open.
Our membership of 65 plus in Woodbridge. There is much information exchanged, ideas shared, priorities identified and opportunities for accountability offered and provided at this meeting. I expect all councillors and CEOs and staff use this opportunity to flag and hear out priorities that may be relevant to your wards. Some motions get through, some motions don't. Some questions are asked, some questions get answered. Annually, it is difficult to know the status of motions and the questions put from the previous meeting. Questions asked last year may be given a response, however, the question has not been answered, nor provided back to people. Last year, elector matters were raised at the March meeting, however, the remainder of motions were randomly raised at various meetings throughout the year, making it both difficult and impossible to identify the status of the items for both the City of Swan and those who put the motion. The update of the 2023 AEM motions provided is not satisfactory, with 26 no further report required, despite mention of reported back. Will be discussed, will be investigated, will be addressed. The community deserve outcomes to be reported and not masked in council minutes. The result is the status is unclear and outcomes not transparent. We need a process that works, questions are asked and responded to. Motions are tracked and reported at the time in a responsible manner, and the process works for ratepayers and council. There are clear needs to improve communications on the website about the annual electors meeting. It is not more, it is regulatory, compliance focused and an invitation to residents. It does not inform electors of the role and the meeting place. Reporting process, and that was missed from the introduction. Take a look at how other council websites see and how they do this, providing information and creating a sense of meaningful exchange. There's even a sausage seal before with the Bayswater, the leaderboard, whatever, you know. So there's different ways we can do it. We've got a core history and we're stepping forward. So this is to demonstrate to the electors that the City of Swan will respond to input from their electors and validate electors' efforts and input, and also for us as ratepayers and electors to validate the great work by our councillors.
Thank you, Ms. Tim. And Mr. Summers, would you like to speak to the motion? Do you have anyone who would like to speak for the motion? Do you have anyone who would like to speak against the motion? Or once more, is anyone for the motion who would like to speak? Or anyone against the motion? If not, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your green card. And all those against the motion to raise the red card. Thank you. That was motion carried, and that was 54 to 0. We'll move on to motion number 9, and Ms. Deering again from Goodrich Ratepayers Association. If you'd like to move your motion.
That the City of Swan reinstate public deputation time to 5 minutes at council meetings by amending the meeting procedures and protocols by mid-2024.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Ms. Smarter? Sorry, Ms. Martin. Do you like to state your name and suburb, please? Thank you. Go through.
A reduced time of 3 minutes does not provide enough time for residents to get views and ideas across. It is unnecessary and undemocratic. We used to have 5 minutes by which you could put a deputation at the beginning of meetings if you felt strongly about something or needed to get ideas across. Last year, as part of their process on revising the meeting protocols, they reduced it down to 3 minutes. So can you imagine you've got 3 minutes to, on the big day that you need to get something across, you've got 3 minutes, okay? Now you do have the opportunity to say, I need the time of extension. But which one of us, in the midst of doing something, can go, oh, please sir, I'm halfway through telling you that I don't want the block built or the whatever, can I have an extension of time? It does not, help. So a requirement to seek an extension halfway through their presentation loses train of thought. Jill or Joe average speaking in the council is frightening enough, but to do so as the matter is of significance is very difficult. Public deputations are important opportunities to highlight key information, address last-minute misconceptions and wrong information, and I can tell you that, in actual fact, we had a huge issue around obtaining a motion because what we were saying, what was reported by the council in their report was incorrect. And so having the opportunity for people to actually go and say, excuse me, this isn't correct, right? We know that this is not intentional, but there's a mistake, right? And it made a big difference to getting our motion through. So deputation for 5 minutes ensures equity and access of our diverse populations, levels of language, education and confidence. Not everyone is a trained public speaker. CEOs, City of Swan have brought in streamlined processes such as planning delegations and other changes. These have reduced the time and improved meetings, deputations, and important exchange and discourse to enable the decisions. Making better decisions and hearing ratepayers is a key part of the role of councillors and staff. During election time, a public meeting was held in Swanville. Of the 10 mayoral candidates running for me, all supported this change back to 5 minutes, bar one, and indicated support of the motion should it come to council. Let common good prevail, reinstate 5 minutes for deputations, allow your community to speak. We don't really want to show up on a wet, cold day, we ain't getting paid for it. Sometimes there's really important matters, we want you to listen. Okay? And it doesn't always have to be the Goodrich Ratepayers, and I do apologise for speaking so much, but these are not all my ideas, these are ideas that are coming from the Association.
Intending to not to speak to the motion. Is there anyone? That's for the motion. Just checking, Mr. Would you like to state your name and your suburb? You have 2 minutes.
James Pollard, Jane Brook. Yeah, I do support the motion, and the reason I wanted to speak is I don't want to give any motions at all, but I would support 5 minutes because I have a bit of a rating myself, and I understand what you're saying, especially somebody who's new to speaking publicly. That 5 minutes is important. If it's your moment, you really want to have your say, don't you? But there's some of us that can do it in 3 minutes, and I do understand to some extent why it was reduced. It's a logistical thing, isn't it? It's time. So what I would propose, or I'm going to vote to your motion, is that it's 3 minutes notionally. But if you come along with the day and you want to speak longer, you elect to speak for 5 minutes. And that might enable people to make a shorter submission if they can, but if they really want to wind out, you get your 5 minutes. That's just by way of comment, but generally speaking, I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, without getting it mixed up, is there anyone against? Is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? No? We can put the motion. All those in favour? Oh, sorry. Question? Just use the microphone. Just state your name and tell us again.
Jeff Williams, Swan Valley. Look, I'm not speaking against the motion as such, but I'd like clarity in the sense that I think the idea of 5 minutes for local council meetings is a good idea if you only get 3 or 4 or 5 issues a month. But I hope we're
Do you have a question?
Yes, the question is, I'm hoping we're excluding tonight's meeting from that. 3 minutes is adequate for tonight's meeting because you've got speakers for and against up to 3 of each, so you end up with a very long, potentially a very long night. So let's exclude tonight out of this motion and have it for council meeting motions only, because this is still a committee of the City of Swan meeting.
Okay, so we'll just put that motion to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your green card. Thank you. And those against? Vic, red card, please. Fantastic. So the motion is passed and with 62 in your. Thank you very much, Christina. So we have motion number 10, Mr. Simon Ashby from Woodbridge Ratepayers Association.
Good evening. My motion is that the City of Swan hold a public information session to update residents of Woodbridge and Midland and outline the details of forthcoming 4-lane highway development and interchange at Morrison Road in Great Eastern Highway.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Thank you. Would you like to state your name and subject? Sorry? Thank you. You have 3 minutes for Mr. Ashby.
Nobody at the Morrison Road crossing, there are 3 things involved to my knowledge. City of Swan wants to make Morrison Road 4 lanes. Main roads want to replace the interchange of the Eastern Highway and Morrison Road. And Metronet want to have a great separation. Get rid of the level crossing. We've spoken to all those parties and they seem to pass the buck to next month, saying, not my problem. But obviously, it needs some form of coordination and we're not getting that information to the public. Questions include, how will great separation of freight and passenger railways be achieved? We've been told it's an underpass, we've been told it may be an overpass, but whatever it is, it needs an incline or a decline to access it, which will go way beyond the railway reservation. It will cross Great Eastern Highway. I don't know how that's going to be achieved. Main roads wants to do an interchange there. Why is the City of Swan wanting to make Morrison Road 4 lane when it comes to a halt? It doesn't actually join the Reed Highway, or whatever that road is, Road Reed. What size of vehicles is the Morrison Road upgrade designed for? Is it for freight, heavy freight, or just domestic vehicles? I think that electors and ratepayers are entitled to be informed, and that's why I'm calling for a meeting to tell people what is planned and how it's going to be planned.
Thank you. You want to speak, Mr. Chris Davies, for the motion? Would you like to speak? We'll just bring the microphone down. You have 2 minutes, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to support Mr. Ashby's motion. This ties in with the 2023 annual elected meeting motion number 1, where the comment coming back from the city was the city requested a copy of the Gateway 2021 traffic report, which is what remains interchange between Morrison Road and Great Eastern Highway. And the response was no further report required. It is required. We've had meetings with the city of Swan, and we haven't been able to get a clear understanding of what is going to happen with Morrison Road and Great Eastern Highway. And as Mr. Ashby so very rightly said, every party passes the buck to the other two parties. We must have an answer because it's right in the centre of our community.
Thank you very much. We have a speaker against the motion. Speaker against, is there any speakers for the motion? Sorry, John.
John Considine Woodbridge. If the goes to the underpass and if the extension grade is the same as for the Boyd Street underpass, then the road will extend, then that grade will be 90 metres either side of the railway area. And that will extend right to the school. So I cannot see how it can be put in place without either removing the school or removing housing. So I think the money just seems completely infeasible. For a traffic under almost 5,000 traffic a day. Quite a lot of money just going to from the schools.
Thank you very much. Against, we'll put that straight to the vote. The red card. It'll be a long night. And those against, please raise your red card. It's nil red card, so we have motions passed, 54-0. So we're moving along to motion number 11, which is Mr. Philip Woods from Lockridge Progress Association. Philip, are you here tonight? Sorry? And your name is? Joseph was. And suburb? Thanks, Joseph.
Okay, first motion is to move that the city immediately release all costs and time delays relating to the David Road and Banana Road roundabout. And in future, all information relating to projects that have commenced within the Altone Ward be released to ratepayers of the city, including costs, delays, and an explanation provided if these projects are delayed for any reason.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? And your name and suburb, please?
Lockridge.
You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, so I think anyone who's been down that road, it's been delayed. I moved to the area more than a year ago, and it's still still under construction for just one roundabout. It's been frustrating because even when there's been no works taking place, I know last winter there was pretty much nothing happening, and those speed limits remained in place despite nothing happening. And it also makes for an inefficient road network, having those long delays without an explanation, and it's dangerous too. We've had people speed through the area, and I've been told that the mosque adjacent has been very dangerous for people entering and exiting them. That area while it's been under construction. And we just want to know why and what the costs have been, because obviously these delays, there's a lot of administration, construction, and even the traffic management, like they've had to be in place for an extended period of time, and it feels like it's been done kind of in vain.
Thank you very much.
Explain that pretty well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh,
No, did you have more to add?
not for this motion.
Okay, thank you. And Patricia, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Is there anyone for the motion who would like to speak for the motion? Is there anyone against the motion? There's no one for or against, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your green card. And those against, raise your red card. We had 47 nil, so the motion's carried. Thank you very much. And now, since you're up here in place of Mr. Philip Woods, I'll move your second motion.
Second motion, this is a big one for the Alto Ward and the Lockridge area, that the City of Swan urgently address the big issue of traffic congestion on Ward Street that affects Caversham and Lockridge and further afield in Eden Hill.
Do you have a second for that motion?
Sorry, there was more to the motion.
I'll read the whole through. Okay, continue.
Oh, sorry. And that this be placed on the city's priority advocacy list of projects with city priority funding to alleviate congestion. Additionally, that some form of interim traffic mitigation be put in place between Benara Road and Morley Drive until a permanent solution can be found. That the City of Swan immediately undertake a traffic study between Benara Road and Morley Drive to determine the volume and type of vehicles utilising this section of the road, and to release a report to the electors of their information. And to release to ratepayers any concept designs that have been undertaken previously to address any traffic issues.
Thank you. Now we'll ask if there is a second.
Patricia Leslie Lockridge.
Thank you. Next.
So not much else to say. It's been a huge issue, and it's been a big issue not just for the City of Swan but for the town of Bassendean. I've heard there's been petitions in areas like Eden Hill as well to get this addressed, and it's even bigger. It's dangerous. People are ramping on Walshy Road for ages, and it's dangerous because there are a lot of people coming out on Railway Parade to leave the station, and people are just lining up for ages and ages and ages, and something really needs to be done.
Thank you. Patricia, as a second, would you like to speak to the motion? Is there anyone for the motion? Is there anyone who would like to speak against the motion? I'll pop that straight to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your green cards. And all those against, raise your red card, please. It's 59-0, the motion is carried. Thank you very much, Joseph. And to move on to motion number 14. So William, oh sorry, 13, I missed 13, I'm skipping it here. We have motion 13, Veronica Hughes from Bennett Springs. Are you here tonight, Veronica? Hello. You can move it down if you need to. Okay. So the motion is for the City of Swan Council to implement better communication with residents on Bennett Springs Drive across the road from the J Sri Swamiaram Temple due to the constant destruction of land and trees from around our homes. Do you have a second?
Andy Hughes from Bennett Springs.
Yes, I'll just outline. Residents on Bennett Springs Drive during 2020 successfully arranged with the City of Swan to plant 27 plus trees on the verge of Bennett Springs Drive across the road from our homes in Bennett Brook due to a mass unauthorised clearing by the temple across the road and all the land around Bennett Brook. We've had the new trees in and they've been growing for 2 years and looking beautiful. And this week the City of Swan manager, Ms. Rosa, instructed an employee to cut down all of the trees and ruin the hedging. We have photographic evidence the trees were perfectly healthy within the last 2 weeks. However, the City of Swan reported they were covered in snails. This was true last year. We informed the City of Swan last year and they came out and they treated them and the trees were looking gorgeous. The purpose of the trees was intended and agreed with the City of Swan that they would grow and shield our homes from the thousands of temple events across the road. These trees are rubetiliaceous, they're native trees to Australia and they're planted all over WA, including Midland. They're the yellow hibiscus trees that you see. The trees were dramatically cut back in this week's heat and all cuttings were left lying on the verges of potential fire hazard. In addition, the ROC confirms we pay higher insurance premiums due to living across the road from the bush. However, the City of Swan allows the temple to hold firework displays less than 100 metres from our homes. Historically, the verge is caught on fire and residents have put out the fire. Firework rubbish has lived in our homes, fallen on our heads as they've exploded from the sky. The latest display last year was held during a heat wave. The fire department confirmed there was a total fire ban that evening. Because of the noise and the explosions, it was that loud it wiped out our Wi-Fi, and a neighbour's dog was killed because it escaped from their yard and was went out home. So just fire aspects that I mentioned in the motion. Keep on asking the City of Swan to listen to us.
I can address those as separate issues, but I really need you to stick to the motion.
Okay, so.
You've got 33 seconds.
Right, well, we asked the City of Swan to put in traffic management as during the fireworks display last year, a huge amount of traffic came into our street and a child was nearly run over by a reversing car. The cars came in and blocked the contract fire truck that would have been needing to move if there had been a fire. The City of Swan told us that there was traffic management. There was not traffic management around our homes. It may be outside of the temple, but we're going to have it. Also, with regards to communications,
thank you.
3 seconds. I'm not asking for 5 minutes. We also asked City of Swan to come and mow the verge because we had tiger snakes coming into our yards, and they left it, and a neighbour actually used her own personal money to pay. Thank you.
I've just gone over the 3 minutes.
I'm sorry. It's okay.
On tonight.
We've had a decade of this.
And I thank you for your attention. And will we have a
Yes, it's Andy Hughes. I'll only take 2 minutes, so that's all.
2 minutes, and thank you.
Yeah, just a second, everything what I just said. Going back to the trees, looking after the trees, communication between the city and the residents. It might be a good idea if the residents can't take a bit of control and look after the trees, look out for the trees, and when we feel they need to be cut back a little bit, if the ground's component, we can contact the city and have them and do it, rather than become an absolute massacre on a 40-degree day. In regards to their purpose, screening from the temple was the reason for that, and they were going nicely. It's going along nicely now. I think probably a year of growth in those trees, but I think there'll be a bit of we need more trees to grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any speaker against the motion? Any speakers for the motion? And last call, any speakers against the motion? No, we'll go straight. Oh, Mr. No, sorry, wait a minute. All right, so we'll put that straight to vote. All those in favour, please raise your green card. All those against, please raise your red card. And then review.
And can I just say thank you to the city as well.
Thank you.
For helping us with the bagpipes and drums that are being played out in front of our homes every night. Thank you for dealing with that.
No worries, thank you. So that motion was carried 55-0. Sorry, 65-0. Thank you. So we'll move on to motion number 14. Now, Williams, this guy, or Bill Carroll from Get Together.
Yes, Bill Carroll, and firstly, can I say that in regards to motion 8, I put both of these motions last year and I heard nothing back. So I should have said something before, but my first motion is that the city of Swan introduce a significant tree register, and this will encourage a greater appreciation and respect for trees and biodiversity.
Do you have a seconder? Smarter Turner? Is it Swan View or is it together? Swan View? You have 3 minutes, thanks.
Okay, thanks. So as I said, I put this forward last year and done some more research. City of Armidale, they actually produced their own booklet on significant trees. Bassendean, they have a significant tree register, and they've actually got a tree canopy action plan happening at the moment. Bayswater have one. Canning have a significant tree register. Coburn have a significant tree register. And they've actually got tree preservation orders, and they're actually applying for an amendment to the Minister for Planning for their town planning scheme that would require development approval for the removal or substantial pruning of trees and developments happening. Sterling have a register. Theirs was introduced in 2022. Vincent have one in 1999 that was introduced. Joondalup have one. So to me, it seems that we're a bit out of place here in the Swan, especially with what we have happening at the moment, the shothole borer, which is running rampant down in the city. It will make its way up here into the city of Swan, without a doubt. I think they're talking about 25% of the trees, the very old mature trees in Hyde Park. A lot of those trees are exotic. So, which is probably more reason why we need to appreciate and respect their remnant vegetation as well as our exotic trees. Someone said earlier that the built heritage is like gold. Well, biodiversity is gold as many times as you want, and we cannot replace biodiversity. We seem to just be on the video earlier. I think the city planted 1,700 trees. What I'd really be interested in is how many removed. We've just had the instance of a set of trees planted as screening, and the city have gone down there and pruned them in a silly time. I can say something about that in the next one. I'd like to see the city of Swan engage in ecologist who can sit down and talk, whether it's a site visit or whatever, with all councillors and the corporate side of the city of Swan. And the ecologist might be able to explain why it's so important to look after our biodiversity. The trees, I'm sure last week everyone would have stood under the shade of a tree in the heat wave that we had. The trees provide us with shelter, habitat. They make up wildlife corridors. The insects attract reptiles. They provide life for birds. They give us pollen. They give us leaves, the branches. Anyone that had a tree growing near their house last week would have been very pleased with that. The trees have scientific...
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. I'm sorry to end
Okay.
you 3 minutes. It's not on a very tight schedule here. So I will look for seconds we've had. So would you like to speak to this one? Last? Is there anyone for, would you like to speak for the motion?
Along the Swan River in particular. I did start photographing them with the idea of putting them up on a bit of something. We have some remarkable trees that have been here well before settlement, and those trees need to be protected and celebrated.
Thank you. Is anyone against the motion who would like to speak? No one else? Question, if you state your name and subject.
Jeff Williams, Swan Valley. Is the motion referring to, is this motion referring to street trees and shire trees and council park trees, stuff like that? Seems quite a reasonable idea, but is it referring to people's own properties where a tree would be cut and regarded as a heritage tree on your property going to that yard, and you won't be able to touch it? Is it on private property?
We'll ask
Motion
Mr. Carroll.
or not?
We'll ask Mr. Carroll because it's his motion, which are you referring to?
Ideally, I would like to see private property included, but this is solely for Shire and Crown Land.
And if there's no one for or against, question?
What do you class as a significant
To ask, yeah. Okay, so, well, significant trees are trees that mean whatever to people. People like, say in the Noongar culture, Noongars they would plant the placenta of their child when the baby was born under as a tree. So to the Noongar people, most of the remnant trees, it might be flooded gums, might be marries, might be jarras, she oaks, the story tree. But we look at the sugar gums down in Guildford, etc., those types of trees. Even like plane trees that really don't do very much for the environment, but the plane trees along Great Eastern Highway at Guildford Grammar, they're beautiful trees. So they're significant trees. And last week, when we had the heat wave, another one this week, any tree that you can park your car under really is a significant tree.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to put this straight to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your green card. Thank you. Okay. And all those against, please raise your red card. Carried 53-2. Sorry, 63-2. Thank you very much, Mr. Dalton. We're up through motion number 15. You've got two. So, Mr. Carroll, if you'd like to move your motion.
Sure, thank you. Once again, I put this one forward last year and I heard nothing back. I did have some correspondence from other councils, but that's all I had. My motion is that the City of Swan have a dedicated environmental officer, natural assets manager, to oversee the biodiversity that exists and to implement the local biodiversity biodiversity strategy.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Yep.
And your name and subject? And you have 3 minutes, please, Mr. Carroll.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to say that in the update of the 2023 electors meeting, is that the city employs several environmental staff with a natural environment team and specific environmental experts such as a natural area conservation ecologist to assist in the implementation of the city's biodiversity strategy. That's news to me. Because I just did ask that in my last motion that the city engage an ecologist. I didn't realise that the city has an ecologist already on their staff, and I've spoken to the natural environment team and asked for a few things, and I've never at any stage been told that they have an ecologist on the staff, so that concerns me greatly. I feel that a natural environment officer who can then liaise with government bodies, railways, state planning issues, etc. It would make life a lot better. I think the city of Swan is growing, as we all know, very quickly, and I think the more staff we could get, professional staff that actually know what they're talking about, would help. I know that the previous natural assets manager, he was very good for the environment and the biodiversity. He always worked to enhance it. I know at times he didn't always get on with the city corporate staff, but at least he stuck to his word. I'd like to see the biodiversity improve through the better management, and I just don't want to see suburbs, streets and parks named after the flora and fauna that exists here. I think we should be keeping the flora and fauna.
Thank you very much. And to second it, Mr. Rebecca, would you like to speak to the motion? Yep. Is there anyone against the motion? There's no one against the motion. Put this to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your green card. Sorry. Do you have a question? Okay, apologies. I'll let this question go.
Yes, the use of the word dedicated environmental officer. Does that mean we currently have an officer who's not dedicated or is doing shared?
Good question.
If I could, I think it's someone whose sole responsibility is that matter, as opposed to having other responsibilities. So we have a variety of staff that work in the environmental area, no one probably whose sole responsibility is that. Okay.
Put that back to the motion. Sorry, put that to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise the screen cards again. My thanks. Those against, raise your red card, please.
Yep, question.
So sorry, we might be able to ask that at the end, or come and see staff, okay? We need to move on. We've now got, so that was 58 nil. Motion's carried, and we're moving on to motion number 16, Mr. Pollard from Jane Brook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My motion's a motion I call a comprehensive evaluation protocol for proposed motions impacting previously sanctioned substantial projects. It's a mouthful, and I'll break it down after I've consecutive motion. I move that where there is a previously sanctioned motion pertaining to a substantial project encompassing infrastructure, land, buildings, and multiple requisite contracts, that in the event of a proposed motion impacting a previously sanctioned motion concerning the substantial project described above, that a comprehensive evaluation shall be initiated. The evaluation shall weigh the costs and benefits associated with the enactment of the proposed motion in consideration of the efficiency of the previously sanctioned motion, the implications for the community and the financial ramifications for the city of Swan. The assessment shall yield one of the following outcomes. If the determined detriment outweighs the discerned benefits, the proposed motion shall be disallowed. In instances where the proposed motion is...
Excuse me, just a moment, I'd just like to put an objection. Excuse me, Mary Lou, if you do that again, you will be exited from any further meetings in the City of Swan. Thank you. If you'd like to continue.
Sure. In instances, the second outcome, in instances where the proposed motion is found to be frivolous to an extent that it presents no substantial prospect of augmenting the efficacy of the original motion or conferring any tangible benefits to the ratepayers of the community, and where the most probable consequence of its approval is the introduction of unnecessary delays to the previously sanctioned major project, the proposed motion shall be disallowed.
Thank you, Mr. Pollard. Is there a seconder? Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. So look, I'll just break it down and I'll use some examples because it was quite a mouthful. I'm moving to where there's a previously sanctioned motion. That means council's approved the motion and it's a big project, a really big ticket one. And that involves infrastructure, land, buildings and multiple requisite contracts. What's my example is going to be the Middle Noble redevelopment master plan. That's a biggie. So that was voted for and that was sanctioned by the council. So in the event that a proposed motion impacting on that motion that concerns that substantial project is put to the council, then a comprehensive evaluation shall be initiated. Now I'm saying there must be a connection with the new motion and that big ticket motion. And we'll look at it, we'll evaluate it before it goes through to be voted on by the council. So that evaluation will to weigh the costs and the benefits associated with enacting that new motion in consideration of the efficiency or the effect of the efficiency of that previously big ticket motion, the implications for the community and the financial ramifications for the city of Swan. So if that new motion has any particular substantive effects in terms of letting that project move forward or implications for the community or any problems or any impact on the finances of the city of Swan, we ought to look at it before it goes through. So once that assessment is done, it should yield the following outcome, and I think that's straightforward. If the detriment outweighs the discerned benefits, so there's the downside is more than the upside of introducing that motion, we shouldn't let it go through to council. Just drop it. Don't waste our time. It can go through if the benefits are there, and then we can argue at council, and everybody will be on notice at this. In instances where it's found to be frivolous, so that's just a time-wasting motion, and there's no prospect that it's going to add to anything to that major project, or confer any tangible benefits to the ratepayers, then and the probable consequence of that motion is it's just going to stall things. It's going to keep things going. It's not going to keep things going. So it's going to stop the actual motion from going ahead. That's the big ticket motion. It's going to stop it. If that's the only effect it's going to have, it should be disallowed. So there's a bit of a background for this. Obviously my example is the Middle Noble redevelopment project, and that has a history of delayed motions, or motions that just delay it. Now, back in 2015 and 16, I was one of those people who believed it was a very good idea for that Morm to go ahead. I saw all the plans, I thought it was fantastic. And eventually it was adopted by council in 2017 or 2018. How long?
15 seconds.
15 seconds. All right, well, I'll just go at the end there. Anyway, there's a litany of motions that have delayed that project. So look, if you wander around Midland now and compare it with Midland of 2022, you would notice that there's more than a flicker of hope and activity for the prosperity of Midland.
Thank you very much, and that's your time.
May I ask for just a little more time to finish my action?
We are absolutely pushed over time.
Well, I haven't finished.
You have the opportunity for the speakers to support you. So I'm going to call for the first speaker.
Oh, that's
Thank you. Mr. Holland? Is it? Okay, so we'll call for, is there anyone else who'd like to speak for the motion? Is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? You did waive your right, Mr. Holland. You waived your right. So I'm going to take the
He
question.
hasn't waived his right. Lord, diverting the process here. This is outrageous.
That's enough. Mr. Hollett, you clearly gave your right away and said, I'll give it to him to speak. But that's not part of the process of how tonight's meeting runs. We were offered the, just one moment, Mr. Hollett. You were offered the opportunity to speak, and we're clearly on a timeline tonight, and you clearly waived that right and gave it back and gave it away. So I'm moving on, and I'm asking for, Mr. Pollard, your time is now finished. Thank you. And I've called for a speaker 4, and if you're going to continue this, then I will ask you to leave. So I'm now asking, is there anyone for the motion who would like to speak? Is there anyone against the motion who would like to speak? And the gentleman, if you'd like to state your name and the suburb, please.
Jeff Williams, Swan Valley. The motion to me looks like it's got the potential to commit future council to a previous council's decision, which may not be on council anymore. So what can happen is, like I said, the decision made in 2017, and then a motion is excluded from council to consider, so the council can't respond to the voters of the day about anything that may have changed. And also, I mean, it's only one step away from people who put motions that other people don't like and take that to flop and hearing a motion that we don't like. That's the whole point.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now I'll ask, is there anyone against the motion who would like to speak? Ms. Marlene Stepper, do you just...
Marina Stimple, I'm from South Gifford. The way you have proposed your motion sounds like a censorship where someone else and not the councillors are going to decide if a motion is beneficial or detrimental. But you had your time, sir, so you just wasted proselytizing instead of making your point. So this motion, I think, is also non-democratic and probably goes against the purpose of what a council is there to do, which is to decide on the day whether or not things are beneficial or detrimental to society and the community. It's not the job of some committee to decide if the councillor needs to hear or not hear a motion. And for that reason, I am thoroughly against it.
Thank you very much. And I'll ask, is there a last speaker for the motion? If there's no more speakers for the motion, then I'll put the motion to the vote. So, those in favour of the motion, please raise your green card. So 10. And those against, if you could raise your red card, please. So the result was 10 against and 45 for, so the motion is 10 for and 45 against, which is, the motion's lost. Thank you, Mr. Pollard. We'll move on to motion number 17, Mrs. Marilena Stimple from South Guildford.
Good evening. So my motion is about reviewing the local government boundaries and reads as follows. Noting that the Local Government Advisory Board established by the Local Government Act 1995 evaluates proposal for changes to local government boundaries and can accept proposal for change from the Minister for Local Government, local governments themselves, or from the electors. The eligible electors at this annual meeting of electors of the City of Swan hereby request this Council to progress the following. That the City of Swan Council, in the interest of good governance, reviews the southwest boundaries and suburbs of the district to consider whether there are synergies for some or all of those urban communities to be represented by adjoining local authority, the town of Bassendean, and that the City of Swan engage with the town of Bassendean Council to ascertain receptiveness for collaboration with the city to develop a joint proposal in relation to potential boundary changes for consideration by the Local Government Advisory Board, and notes that the Local Government Advisory Board can assess the merits or otherwise of any boundary realignment proposal, either formally or informally. And should the City of Swan and the Town of Bassendean Council wish to proceed, the Local Government Advisory Board will undertake targeted consultations with affected communities and stakeholders for due consideration prior to making any recommendations to the Minister. So the rationale, quickly.
Do you have a seconder?
Sorry.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah. So the City of Swan is just too big for its own good. We have over 100,064 people as of June 30th of this past year, and we have 42 suburbs. And it just opposed some of the fastest new growing suburbs with some more established communities. Think Edinburgh versus Guildford, for example. Meeting the needs of this diverse population is challenging and often leads to disparity in revenue distribution and focus. The CEO said it himself this much tonight when he put into the video. He did say it is challenging to keep up with the city, a city this big. Therefore, this request is to consider a rationalization of the local boundaries to provide improved local government representations that aligns more closely to those communities and their values. In practical terms, this motion seeks to address the needs of communities more closely aligned to the City of Bassendean, geographically and or historically, with similar demographics, urban density, and activity. These communities that could be considered for review include, for example, Guildford, Woodbridge, Midland, South Guildford, Haslemere, Chiara, Lockridge, and Beachborough, and the airport, some of, or all of which could potentially be incorporated into the town of Bassendean via a change in the boundary between the two local authorities. The process of analysis and collaboration between the two local authorities may culminate in the assessment of a possible boundary realignment by the Local Government Advisory Board and consultation with affected communities. It is undoubtedly a very long process. There are advantages in commencing this process now, having due regards for long-time forecast and competing priorities, confronting the City of Swan that are presenting the ever-increasing challenges to servicing our vastly diverse communities and localities. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Mr. Constable, would you like to speak to the motion? Okay.
Well, I'd like to support the motion and recommend it strongly to Madam Chair. The issue is that the City of Swan has grown enormously, and most of that growth is in greenfield areas, which have quite a different character to the original City of Swan, based in Midland and Guildford. So I suspect that there's efficiencies and improvements to be made to benefit both the new greenfield sites such as Ellenbrook and the established sites such as Guildford and Midland. By realigning the boundaries so that the boundaries enable that specialisation to occur, so that the greenfield sites have councils which are more closely localised within Ellenbrook, giving the community greater access to council services, and also that the issues that the council staff deal with are quite different in a greenfield site than they are in an established site. So in an established site, as we've heard tonight, there are issues relating to history, which people are passionate about, wish to retain, but also there's real life to be dealt with, and there's renewal that needs to be negotiated and dealt with. that renewal is very different from developing a new site. And I think that this issue, Basildine has that issue, Guildford has that issue, Midland, Woodbridge has this issue. We need to find a way forward where we can move forward, not be constrained by our history, but enabled by the history to develop and provide for the growing community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was your 2 minutes. Is there anyone against the motion? Is anyone for the motion? Okay, if not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your green cards. Thirty-one for, and those against, please raise your green card. So the result is 31 for and 9 against. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Now we're up to motion 18, Mr. Richard James from Bullsbrook. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My motion is to request that all development applications within sewerage sensitive areas and where aerobic treatment units are required, conditions must include a groundwater level monitoring board to be installed to ensure the required separation between the ATU waste outlet and groundwater. Failure to achieve this separation at all times will result in the closure of the development until such time as separation is achieved. Groundwater quality monitoring boards, a minimum of 1 per 50 metre boundary, be installed down gradient of the development and monitored on a quarterly basis to ensure no nutrients or contaminants are flowing into groundwater. Failure to achieve this condition will result in the closure of the development until the cause of the pollution is identified and rectified.
Thank you. And do you have a seconder? And James, would you like to state your name and your subject, thanks? And James Bullsbrook. Thank you. And you have 3 minutes, thanks.
I'm speaking this evening on behalf of the North Swan Land Conservation District. I'd like to add that areas, I mean areas within the city of Swan that do not have a mains sewerage connection. And also that any conditions that I've outlined are at no cost to the city of Swan. The Ellenbrook catchment is under threat from industrial and residential development. And the groundwater that flows under the land flows into the Ellenbrook and ultimately into the Swan River. Often within the Ellenbrook catchment, the groundwater table can be either at surface or very close to the surface. And I've seen in recent development applications that the City of Swan Planning Department's conditions for development applications are not very objective in their detail. Conditions must be less subjective and more objective. They must be precise and measurable and make checking for compliance much easier. Therefore, my motion is designed to add real protection to our groundwater and to the environment in general.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak to the motion? Does anyone who'd like to speak for the motion? Smiling, if you'd like to just announce your name and.
Swada Tanner from Swan View. I think the second mention that you've done in your discussion is that there are different planning requirements for different groups, people, and I think that's what we need to work with, is that everyone gets the same thing. There is no personal judgment within the application review, I would say, and that would be the reason to support this. So people's opinion are taken out of it, and it's clear and precise for everyone, regardless if you're a big developer or you're just one person.
Thank you. Does anyone like to speak against the motion? If not, we'll put this straight to the vote. All those in favour, you raise your green card. And those against, you can raise your red card, please. Okay, so we have none. So it was 58-0. That motion is carried. Thank you. We move on to motion number 19. Mrs. Anne James from Bullsbrook Residents and Ratepayers Association, Incorporated in Bullsbrook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening. On behalf of the Bullsbrook Residents and Ratepayers Association Incorporated, we ask that the City of Swan begin their fire preparedness, education and active monitoring forward to educate landowners to prepare their properties before the ground and vegetation dries out, rather than when the ground and vegetation is tinder dry. The arrival of the compliance letter is now too late to begin preparation. We ask the City of Swan to amend their timelines accordingly with regards to the fire preparedness and compliance.
Thank you. Do you second it? Yes. Would you like to state your name and your review? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. We do appreciate the efforts that the City of Swan and Deep has put into educating the public with regards to fire preparedness, but it's still not enough. The fire season puts terrific responsibility on our volunteer firefighters and emergency support, not to mention effects to the whole community. We rely on our volunteer firefighters to be available at all times, and the costs associated with firefighting, such as air support, is a burden to the state. We appreciate that accidents happen. However, many fires begin by lack of understanding, carelessness and panic. I live in Bullsbrook, and each December our fireys and local residents have to contend with bushfires, many of which have been started by landowners who have received their non-compliance letters from the City of Swan when conditions are no longer conducive to spray vegetation or safe to use machinery such as slashing, where there is a lot of rock. We now live in a drying climate. The seasons and conditions are changing. I live in Clarkson Road, Bullsbrook, and we experienced 2 fires within 10 days of one another. One on Clarkson Road, which thankfully was put out quickly, and one on Taylor Road, which required significant air support to bring under control. All landowners must be educated to accept that if they choose to live in rural areas, the responsibility is on them to prepare their properties for fire. Absent landowners are often a problem. Individual preparedness affects other landowners in the vicinity. Waiting to receive a non-compliance letter is too late. The City of Swan would hopefully be contacting problem landowners early in the piece, as we know that there are repeat offenders. Whilst much has already been done to educate, there is always more that can be done. With changing climate, perhaps timelines should be adjusted accordingly to prevent future catastrophe.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lewis, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. I'm one of the fires that they talked about, and I've attended one of the fires that she talked about. it's a constant problem for the local fire brigade. Every year we go to these fires because people start too late. It's really a matter of sending out the letters a bit earlier, preferably at least a month before the permit season. People get time to clear the properties, burn the excess, and then we can have a long weekend like everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone against the motion? And we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your green card. And anyone against, please raise your green card. Thank you. So 66 votes to nil, and that motion was carried. Next motion, we have to motion number 20. We have Claire Scanlon from Guildford. Thanks, Claire.
Good evening. Thank you so much for hosting such a great meeting. It's been really well done, organised, as well. So I'm here to speak on behalf of the Guildford Association, and I'll move a motion to decrease the CEO's delegated powers in planning matters by reducing the need of 11 objections required before an issue becomes an agenda item to 3 objections. The requirement for 11 objections, thank you. The requirement for 11 objections is unreasonable. Sorry, I've lost my place. And is resulting in decisions being made without affected residents having the right to give a public deputation at council meetings and without councillors even being made aware of what has happened.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Would you like to state your name and suburb?
Yeah, right.
And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. So, the reason we're bringing this motion to council is that there's been some matters, planning matters that have not come to council, which we believe should have. The reason they didn't come to council was there were insufficient objections. Now, I understand the planning staff do a thorough job of planning as best they can. However, I don't believe all the information is present. We had one incident recently, and what happened was the plans did not show some heritage brick being removed from a building in Guildford, quite a significant building. I found out about this after the planning decision had been made by the planning department, from the resident contacting me, the affected resident next door. So when I looked at those plans, which Guildford Association, so I looked at those plans and I couldn't see that any heritage brick was being removed because it was not clear in the plans, it was not in the plans. This resident went to the planning staff, spoke to me many times. She's very spoken, she's clear, far more eloquent spoken than me, and not get this seen to her. She could not be of assistance. So I called the Deputy Mayor and I said, what can we do? What can we do about this? And the answer is nothing, because it's an administrative role and councillors cannot get involved in administration. So had there not been that requirement for an objection, it would have come to council and this resident would have had an opportunity to speak. Council would have heard the concerns and perhaps made a different decision. So that is the driving force for me to bring this motion, but I know that many other people would like to have their planning matters heard by council.
Thank you. And Ms. Rock, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure.
Just very briefly add that I agree with the suggestion that the objections for some reason. Considering if a DA, for example, is spatially or geographically isolated from neighbours, and therefore in that instance it would be difficult to have 3 objections, let alone 11. So I do agree with her that 11 objections is a big ask in that instance.
Thank you. Is there anyone against the motion? There's no one against the motion. We'll put that to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your green card. Thank you. And anyone against, please raise your red card. So it was 54 to 11. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to motion 21 from Sharif Fatsioki from Midland. Would you just like to state your motion?
My name is Sharif Fatsioki and I reside in Midland. I move that where a development application proposes to adversely impact the amenity of an adjacent property by seeking to vary the comply or acceptable development criteria requirements of the residential design codes, volumes 1 and 2, by a significant degree, it should not be approved under delegated authority and should instead be referred to council for determination at an ordinary meeting of council.
Thank you very much. The short and succinct. Do you have a seconder? Patrick Ewan. Thank you. And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Okay. My husband and I live in a 120-year-old single-storey historic house on Sage Street in Midland with our 2 children. Our premises is currently an adjacent property to a development application for a 3-storey multiple dwelling which proposes to overshadow our premises by almost 100% in the middle of winter, giving me, my family and our premises no direct access to natural sunlight during the cold winter months, basically rendering it uninhabitable during that time. Pursuant to the Residential Design Codes Volume 2, development where an adjoining property is coded R50/60, 50% overshadowing is an acceptable outcome. Upon contacting the relevant City of Swan planning officer to discuss the development application and proposed overshadowing variation, I was advised as follows. The proposed 100% overshadowing was only for a few months. We could demolish our 120-year-old historic house and build a 3-storey multiple dwelling at our premises if we wanted to. 3-storey multiple dwellings in areas coded R50 and above are the future vision of residential development in Midland, and the development application had reached the final stages and would most likely be approved under delegated authority, regardless of the proposed overshadowing being more than 50% than the acceptable development criteria, as the applicant had already reduced the height of the proposed building by 60 centimetres, and there were no triggers to refer the application to council for determination. An important objective of town planning is the preservation of amenity. By allowing development applications that propose variations to either the acceptable development criteria or deemed to comply with requirements of the Residential Design Codes Volumes 1 and 2, which significantly impact the amenity of existing adjacent properties to be approved under delegated powers, fails to achieve this objective. The cumulative result of these continued approvals without council knowledge will not only be the widespread loss of amenity to houses throughout Midland and the City of Swan, but will encourage the sale and demolition of existing housing stock and the depreciation of that which remains.
Mr. Patrick, would you like to speak on the motion? Thank you. Is there anyone against the motion? No one against the motion. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your green card. Those against, please raise your red card. And so we have 64 for, 64 nil, so the motion is carried. Thank you very much. We move on, and we have Ms. Claire Scanlon for motion number 22 from Guildford.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. So this motion is that the City of Swan advocate for a safe pedestrian crossing to be installed as a matter of urgency on James Street near Atfield Street. This point is identified in the cycle strategy previously adopted by Council and is the missing link for residents to access East Guildford train station, the Principal Shed Park, schools and school bus services.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? State your name and
Diana.
Diana Rodney. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
For expediency purposes, can I ask if there's nobody against? I don't need to speak.
Is there anyone against the motion?
If there's nobody against.
There's no one against, put that motion straight to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your green card. Anyone against? Please raise your red card. With 49 for, the motion is carried. Thank you. And off we go to motion number 23. So we have Mr. Humphrey Bogart from Swan Valley Ratepayers and Residents Association in Hemingway.
The ratepayers have the following motion that the City of Swan ceases all work, land acquisitions, planning and construction of Henry Avenue, south of Park Street, and Bremen, to the intersection of West Swan Road and Green Highway.
Do you have a seconder?
Jeff Williams, Melanie.
Thank you. Okay, 3 minutes.
There are multiple reasons for this motion. First, the environment. The construction of Honeywood Avenue will have significant adverse effect on Bush Forever Site 200 near the Caversham Airfield and financial influence to south of Park Street. The trajectory of this proposed road goes through both sites and will cause increased fragmentation of bushland that should be retained for floral and fauna protection. Both sites are very important for the biodiversity and as well are critical wildlife in Whitehall Park and the Swan River Valley. Rationale for preservation of these sites is well understood, and preservation of such sites should be paramount for any development. Secondly is the traffic. Our own independent research is traffic modelling, which we will be pleased to present to the councillors and executive, demonstrates that Honeywood Avenue is superfluous by any measure and no longer needed. It is a relic of past thinking designed in the early 90s for access to and from Ellenbrook, long before the modern transport points of Drunkerley Drive, Ellenbrook Railway and Tonkin Highway were constructed. Community pressure led the City of Swan Council adopt in March 2021 a motion to stop development of Honeywood Avenue south of Park Street to give main roads time to carry out another traffic modelling with incorporating the above mentioned infrastructure. Nearly 3 years later, the report has not been made public. The ratepayers are very concerned that this is occurred when the City of Swan prides itself on transparency and accountability. The third point is costing. Proceeds. The City of Swan will have to financial burden for the construction and maintenance of a road that is absolutely not necessary. It is the City of Swan's fiduciary duty to carry out the best financial practices. Has lifetime financial modelling and or cost benefit analysis be completed before the proposed development? And if so, the ratepayers request that this be available for independent financial analysis. And as a note, the ratepayers have voted to release a report on the traffic situation, modelling situation regarding this one.
Thank you very much. Steve, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you for that. Look, I think it's a reasonably simple concept, is that the idea was created a long time ago, before John Pellier Avenue and Railway C. Traffic modelling that Wayne Rose has put up is only ever considered being in the picture, never considered being out of the picture. It would make a great deal of sense to string those new traffic roads in Pellier Avenue, and that it's a huge project, it's a complicated project, it has great intrusion into the wetlands and community like that. And in the end, that costs a lot of money. It would be much better for the city of Swan to spend the money in other areas the city of Swan wants to spend it on. So don't spend the money, just don't waste it on the road that was conceived in the 70s, that's been superseded by John Pellier Avenue and others.
Thank you. Does anyone like to speak against the motion? Motion to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. And those against, please raise your red card. We have 54 and 1 against, so the motion is carried. So we're moving on to motion 24, Ms. Deanna Rockich from Guildford. Thanks, Deanna. Thank you. Thanks for listening. So I have a motion that the City of Swan cease the removal of healthy, mature trees on all City of Swan owned land, given Perth's tree crisis that is compounded by the shot-hole borer, otherwise known as the beetle, which is illustrated by the well-documented tree losses that we're now seeing in Kings Park and Hyde Park. Thank you. Do you have a second? Yes, I do. Claire Scanlon from Guildford. In our 3 minutes. I might just very briefly mention that it's repeating a little bit of what Bill said earlier on. But Perth's extremely high summer temperatures now are exaggerated by climate change, and we know that trees play a significant role to mitigate this by cooling air temperatures in our neighbourhoods. Trees also provide shade and shelter for us, birds and fauna. Further, trees provide food and habitat for birds and fauna and contribute to our improved mental health. But we have the lowest, as it's been said earlier on, the lowest tree canopy cover in all of the Australian cities, and we have very poor tree protection policies. And together this has formed a tree canopy crisis. And now we can also add the shot-hole borer to this crisis that is ever expanding. This borer is effectively eating its way through our large, majestic, mature trees. We've seen the losses of about 20 or 30 mature Moreton Bay fig trees in Kings Park at the escarpment, and now Hyde Park, I think 180 trees are earmarked for removal. That's about 10% of all the trees within Hyde Park. So we're going to see far more losses. This is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of tree losses as a result of shot-hole borer. We're going to see far more losses through all of our suburbs as it makes its way from the west to the eastern suburbs. So now more than ever, we need our leaders and our representatives to take serious drastic action to protect the trees that we do have, given that we'll lose so many of it through the shot-hole borer. So I'm making a request for the City of Swan to cease felling or the removal of mature, healthy trees on all City of Swan owned land,
given that the tree canopy crisis that we have at the moment is compounded by this short hold water. Thank you very much. Would you like to speak to the motion? Anyone against the motion? Question? State your name and suburb.
Shane Pollock, Ellenbrook. Just with everyone's interpretation, mature trees, how long is that going to be? 5 years, 50 years, 100 years?
Well, the criteria varies depending on what your objectives are. I would consider a mature tree being of a certain height, for example, or a certain age. It depends on what criteria you set. Different people set different criteria. But I would definitely take into consideration height. It needs to be, say, a minimum of 5 metres or 10 metres. There needs to be certain species that is important. It contributes to the environmental and the heritage and the cultural environment. So there's a range of criteria that can be. For me, it needs to be a significant tree or a mature tree. It should be of a particular height, particular width as well. Thank you. Is there anyone against the motion? Someone against the motion? We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your green card. And all those against, please raise your red card. That motion is carried 57-0. Okay, we'll move on to motion number 25, also from Deanna Mortgage. So this motion also aligns with the previous one in terms of the shot Marlborough. So that I'm requesting that the City of Swan increase tree planting and improve tree sapling care. So this is the care post-planting. Across all suburbs with a holistic approach in mind and employ tree species that are not susceptible, so that are resistant to the shot Marlborough, which is obviously leading to the well-documented tree losses that we're seeing across Kings Park, Hyde Park, and obviously we'll be seeing it elsewhere. Thank you. And do you second it? Claire, please. So Claire Scanlon from Guildford, thank you. And 3 minutes. Yeah, just very briefly. As I said earlier, we need our leaders and representatives to take serious action to not only protect existing trees, but also to significantly increase tree planting. A holistic approach is required with careful consideration to the appropriate tree species, those that are resistant to the shot Marlborough. And what I mean by a holistic approach, we need to take a bigger picture approach. It's not sort of a band-aid approach of, employing one species here and maybe having a specimen or 2 here, another species there and a specimen or 2 of it. But major avenues of trees, trees that are resistant to the shot Marlborough, and really taking care with post-planting maintenance. So a lot of restoration projects focus mainly on the planting phase, but it's really important to focus on the post-planting care. It's not simply about putting in trees and then walking away. What I'm seeing in Guildford is a lot of the tree planting that has occurred on our islands, particularly there was Banksia tree species planted on our islands. I noted that they were poorly planted, like a lot of them were relying on the ground, there wasn't staking put in place, they were of inappropriate tree planting densities, and they weren't the right species for that actual island. And sure enough, within a year, those trees were dead. It's just a complete waste. And the bases were planted 20 centimetres apart. It's just too densely planted. So I think a bigger picture approach is required to ensure that the right species are planted. We need major avenues, and it's really important to take care of those trees after post-planting. So thank you. In the absence of time, I ask, is there anyone against the motion? Against, we'll put this motion straight to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your green card.
Is anyone against? Please raise your card. There are nil against, so it's 56 and that motion is carried. We've now reached 9 o'clock and that was our cut-off date. We have a flexibility of maximum of 15 minutes. I'm going to just push forward with approximately 2 more if we can. So we've got motion 26 from Mr. Flicker. Thanks, Phil.
Phil Thorne, Midlands, that the proposed demolition of Arthur Cooper's house at 29 in the Crest Midlands is by council and is not to be made by delegated authority.
Do you have a second? Mr. Patrick Irwin? Mr. Midland? Bill, you have 3 more.
Okay, the house was built in 1897. It's possibly one of the oldest houses in Midland. It's in good condition. It's associated with an important railway family. There's not been a specific decision of council to demolish 29 the Crescent. The public were informed that because of the 4 scenarios proposed in the business plan of the MORM, that every stage would be subject to a council decision. So that's it.
Thank you. Vic? Patrick, would you like to speak? Is anyone against the motion? Anyone against the motion, I'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour of the motion, please raise your card. And anyone against, please raise your card. That's 54 nil, and that motion is carried. Thanks very much, Phil. And I know that you've got another one here, motion 27. If it was as quick as the last one, it should very brief. So, Phil?
Okay. For all proposed demolitions of pre-1946 houses in the City of Swan to be decided by council rather than delegated authority.
Do you have a second though? Patrick Irwin, Midland.
Just too many heritage buildings from this period have been demolished in recent years without due consideration of heritage value, and more scrutiny is needed given the public interest.
Thank you. Anyone like to speak for the motion? Patrick Irwin? Or anyone else? Question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering why 46 is considered, the date.
It's just the Second World War. Things changed, the building styles changed after the Second World War. I don't know, you just got to pick a date.
Is there anyone against the motion? No one against, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your green card. None. And anyone against, please raise your red card. 1, 49 to 1. And the motion is carried. Thank you. We're going to squeeze through and keep going. We've got motion number 28 from Anne Winchester, Upper Swan District Ratepayers and Residents Association. Thanks very much, Anne.
Anne Winchester from Upper Swan on behalf of the Upper Swan District Ratepayers and Residents Association.
I move that the list of statutory planning approvals under delegated authority for any month be uploaded to the relevant website page within the second week of every month. The reason being that we have noted that there has been quite a delay in getting that information uploaded.
Thank you very much. And do you have a second?
Yes, Kerry Rowe.
Thanks.
That's it.
Want to speak to?
Oh, no, I think it's sufficient.
Second, would like to speak to the motion? Anyone against the motion? Is no one against to put the motion to the vote? All those in favour, please raise your green card. Anyone against, please raise your red card. 7. Carried. Item motion 29, and if you're the lucky winner tonight, you might get through your first 3 go as hard as you can. So,
Thank you. The Ratepayers and Residents Association, I move that the Ratepayers and Residents Association and such like, within the City of Swan, be given access to any advertised development applications relevant to their specific areas, free of charge and without having to complete a freedom of information form.
thank you. Do you have a second?
Yes, Kerry.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to you.
Only to say that recently we did ask to see some conditions that were placed on a DA that had been approved by delegated authority. We were told that we had to pay for it. Maybe on that it cost prohibitive.
Second, I'd like to speak to the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Anyone against the motion? I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your green card. Those against, please raise your red card. We have nil. Motion is carried nil. Thank you very much. If you'd like to read out your motion number 30.
I move that the advertised to develop applications and other relevant documents be uploaded on the Swan Engage website for planning consultations to be available for public viewing.
Do you have a second?
Yes, Kerry.
Thank you, Kerry. Like to speak to you.
Only that we have noted that more recently there has been a lack of relevant documents being loaded onto that the Swan Engage, and we haven't been able to see things like maps, diagrams, plans. We just give a very brief trace of what the DA relates to.
Would you like to speak to that? Thank you. Is anyone against the motion? Oh, sorry, put the motion to the vote. And put the motion to the vote. First of all, was there anyone against that motion? Could you? We'll ask. Now, put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your green card. And anyone against, please raise your green card. There's no one against, that's carried. And trying to squeeze in the last one, which is motion 31 from M, which is Swan District Ratepayers and Residents Association.
I'm going to be really kind
and to withdraw the motion. Point of order. Yes, that's what I, yeah, that was the decision point. I was just going to say, we're quite happy to withdraw the motion because motion 20 was dealt with, it's similar. Thank you very much. So then we're going to quickly squeeze in motion 32 for Mr. Simon Ashby from Bridge Ratepayers Association.
Yes, again, it's communication and advising residents what stories. The freight line has been talked about realignment and there have been squabbles as to
You
this
just
route.
read the motion out first.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, but, that the City of Swan hold a public information session to update residents on their position on the freight line realignment preferred route. Has land been reserved, pros and cons of the selection and timeframe. We also request a report on the current status of the freight line realignment position with respect to federal and state governments, as lack of information is preventing progress within the City of Swan.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Again, we've been confronted with back parts and things like that, with trying to get information on the freight line. Is it a federal thing? Is it a state thing? Where it might come from? Now, the City of Swan should represent people, whether they have jurisdiction over it or not. They should voice what the residents want to know, or what the ratepayers want to know. And at the moment, we're kept in the dark. So I think an information session would be beneficial to both the City of Swan and to ratepayers.
Do you have a second? Do you have a second? Chris, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I'd just like to support Simon once again. It gets back to this dilemma between the three-way bypassing between the City of Swan, Metro, and the state government. And it's exactly what Simon said. It's exactly the same thing.
Thank you. Is there anyone against who would like to speak to the motion? No one against, we'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your green card. And anyone against? Please raise your green card. Green card. Had 48-0 and that motion is carried. As we're now at our 9:15 maximum level, I'm sorry, we went the extra 15 minutes.
If everyone had been prompt like me tonight, Peter, it would have been a lot better organised. Thank you.
Is there anyone likely to object if we squeeze in the last? If there is, please raise your red card.
I'll be very short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
Okay, the Bellevue residents and ratepayers motion is the city should promptly and permanently allocate water from the Boring Todd Park, Bellevue, to restore and maintain Station Park and Todd Park as usable open space for the Bellevue community.
That was very short, very sweet.
That's my motion, yes.
Do we have a seconder, please? Ms. Diane Albino from
Bellevue
Bellevue,
residents.
is it?
Okay. Allen Street, Bellevue serves as the central hub gathering place for the suburb, with Station Park and Todd Park situated in this area. However, these parks are currently unusable due to the lack of watering. Despite the presence of a boring Todd Park, the water is directed to Coongamaya and does not benefit Bellevue. The absence of functional open spaces in Bellevue hinders community development and diminishes our sense of belonging. In 2018, the city put a bore in Todd Park. We all very, very happy for this bore to be put in, but to our disappointment, it was all going to Coongamaya, even though we've been advocating for water for a long period of time in Bellevue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we know would you like to speak to the motion?
It's all about equity with the suburbs. Bellevue has got zero reticulated grass area, while other suburbs have got multiple areas. I think this water can be shared. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone against the motion? If there's no one against the motion, we'd like to put the last motion vote tonight. Please raise your green card.
And thank you for extending time for my motion.
Is there anyone against the motion? If there wasn't, please raise your red card. The 59 for and nil against. Right. At the conclusion of that meeting, I'd like to say a very, very big thank you. This time restriction we have for the 3 hours, we've done the best that we can in that time. Those motions that haven't been heard tonight, we will still respond to those motions. So please don't feel like you can tonight without being heard. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight, because it is a long time period to sit, and we do appreciate you coming tonight and submitting your motions, but also participating. I'd also like to just finish and thank everyone, particularly our staff, our councillors and our visitors tonight, especially the staff though, for all their hard work putting together all of the motions, the last minute changes, setting up of the space. It's a big event for the City of Swan staff, and I'd like to thank you very much. If you'd like to move into the foyer, there are some light refreshments out here, and we'd like to stay behind and have a chat to you if there's something you want to share with us. Thank you.
If you could assist us, please, by picking up any loose papers and bringing them down to the front.